All right, so here's what we're going to be learning as soon as Dana's on here. So thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out with us and helping make this work. And we got some technical challenges, but we're going to get there. As soon as Dana gets her camera on, we will rock and roll. But while we're doing that, let me give you kind of a heads up and a welcome on here as she's joining in. This is Let's Develop, and we're looking at episode number 37, Finding Your Perspective in Photoshop with Dana Rose. So if this is your first time joining in, welcome. I'm Chris Woolley. I'm your host and the tech shooter or tech problem causer, chief giant pain in the ass. That's me. And I get to solve all these problems. And we're here to do that together and learn about photography and Photoshop, which is going to be kind of fun. A little bit flustered, but we're all good on that. And we're going to have a lot of fun today. So if this is your first time joining in, this is a cool webinar series every 2 weeks and occasionally a few more hiccups coming through. But every 2 weeks, we've got one of these webinars and we've got amazing photographers and artists that share information with us. It's an hour-long format where we just get to learn cool stuff, which I think is really, really fun. So want to give a shout out to American Color Imaging for help putting this on. And if you missed last episode, we had Esteban Gil doing One Light cinematic wedding photography. So he's looking at using off-camera flash, single light, and making epic portraits. So way worth checking out. But while we're doing that, I'm going to kind of skip to the end and let you know about some specials that ACI has going on. You can get 25% off of metal prints right now with the code 22ACI Rose. So you can save some money on there too. We do have a couple more shows coming up as well. Real Estate Photography at the Speed of Light with Colby Mecklemore, and B, Finding Your Path with Renee Gage. And registration is open on both of those as well. And just something to think about while we're here. If you want to be a guest on the show or have an idea of somebody that you'd like to see, shoot me an email. That's hello@cwoolley.com. And I can track down and find some cool speakers, people that love sharing information. Totally open for new tips, ideas, things like that. It's just way more fun that way. All right.
I had to hit refresh on the page, and then I was hitting everything else, but
Oh, I just love technology, and I appreciate everybody's patience. So we still have prizes to give away at the very end too. So yay! Thank you so much for staying here. So let's talk about Dana and how awesome she is, and why we want to learn from her. She's a photographer in Iowa. She specializes in doing portraits of families, children, seniors, but she's got a crazy unique style, very storytelling element to it. And if you've ever seen any of Dana's work, holy cow, your mind's just going to be blown. She does this illustrative stuff that I don't even know how to describe it. We're going to look at it and see what she's doing with it, but she definitely is at the top of her game when she's doing that. So she was most recently has a spot on Team USA representing the United States of America in the 2021 World Photographic Cup. She's a 2020 Diamond Photographer and Diamond Artist, and she's gotten first and third place categories in the 2020 GIAs and the 2021 Diamond Artist. Basically, if you don't know what any of that means, she knows what she's doing. She's walking the walk, talking the talk, and is crazy talented. She's here to share information with us and get a glimpse into what her process is. So, Dana, you want to take it away?
all right. So we're going to come back to this bird in a little bit, but I think a lot of people struggle with getting started and figuring out, ideas are everywhere, but to harness those ideas can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes. So I'm going to talk about how I challenge, kind of harness the ideas and develop them a bit more. Um, Basically, if you know me, I am a huge book nerd. I love reading, absolutely love it. I have since I was a child. So a lot of the ways that I come up with ideas kind of go all the way back to elementary school and writing class, and those books that I've read. Um, when you're reading a good book, you have this idea, this way. They have a way of kind of letting a person leave reality for a little while. And good photography and art has that same magical capabilities. you can kind of get lost into the story that somebody is trying to tell. So for me, this is what I look at. It's the who, what, where, when, why aspect behind a portrait. And it's not just like a who isn't just Chris. It is, this bow tie wearing guy. So you want a little bit more descriptive than just, somebody's name and stuff like that. I have notebooks, tons of them, and I write down these little ideas when they come, and then I just start working on those ideas a little bit more. So we're going to look at some of these, and when you look at where they start versus where they end up, anybody can do this. When I first started going to conventions and stuff like that, we had like where we could walk through and see all the artwork hanging in the gallery. And my first thought was, there's no way I can ever do this. I was looking at works like Ben Shirks and, such powerful artists, and I never thought I could get to anything like that. Well, then after a couple more years, you kind of start to think, well, why not? Why can't I? And then you realize that you can. This here is my basic storyboard. I had an idea written down in my notebook was that my son, who loves to go hiking, and our big old dog, who absolutely loves to come with us all the time, he's my shadow, and then the adventures that we could find along our way. So I took a couple photos and I started drawing over them to lay out my idea. Then I started piecing things together and kind of piecing things together a little bit more. And as you're doing this kind of stuff, you start to ask yourself, well, what don't you like? Where is not working here? And for me, it was this little dog in the corner because my eye kept staying in this triangle over here instead of going this way. So I took him out and started developing. And it doesn't look good to start with, but you just have to believe in yourself a little bit. And eventually, over time, it starts to fall into place. And you slowly start building something that looks like what you kind of had in your head. Or sometimes it goes on to a completely different aspect, but it becomes better. So there's one. This one here.
That was cool.
Yeah. This is another one. And this is what my photography looks like. I am not the best photographer. I never have been, and I will never be. But that's not me. I get a little bit nervous when I'm behind the camera and stuff. It's when I'm in my quiet den behind the computer that I start to kind of feel more at ease. This is beautiful. It's cool, but it didn't feel me. It didn't feel like the story that I really want to tell. I love fantasy. I mean, why live in the real world if you don't have to? This here, so I started to ask myself, well, what's going on with this monkey? What story could he possibly look? He looks a little sad. So what story could they tell? So I started giving him some friends. And I decided, well, the monkey needs some clothes. He's just kind of hanging out there. So I had my son come and pretend to be a monkey so I could get that vest and a hat. He looks absolutely thrilled, but he did it. Started giving him a few, another little friend in there and started piecing things together. The story of this one was Circus Runaways. And now if you look at the red, you notice that the red creates a triangle. Same thing as the placements of all those things. It directs your eye around the image, and it kind of the tones are all kind of muted and stuff like that to kind of add into the story of the image. So when you start doing that thing, you start asking yourself those 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why, and you start developing your own story, and everything that you use, like the colors and everything, all kind of help build into that. So here is another. This did not go the way I planned. I had something much, much happier written down in my notebook. But this little boy, he comes over to play with my dog. He absolutely loves the dog. And they were both upset because they wanted to go back to playing with the cars. So they were not happy like I had thought they would be about having to go stand in front of the lights for a few minutes. So when I looked at these images behind the camera, I started to piece together some of the things that I really liked. For instance, in this one here is his little, his face. And I liked the posture of the dog there. I liked the way that, the backpack and, stuff like that. Every time there's something different. This one here, his little toe. Isn't that toe on the boy just adorable? I wanted to incorporate that. So I pieced everything together and then started to build the story behind it. and putting things together in the way that I thought that I liked. This is where I stopped and said I was done. But then I started thinking, going, what don't I like about this? What's wrong with it? And I went back to the whole storyboarding thing again. Started drawing a rough draft and said, well, if I did this and this, it's going to add to the story. It's going to help frame the image. So I photographed those pieces just randomly throughout my house. Nothing too, or that's my mom's house, but I don't have windows. And then here is the final piece there. It's something to kind of, oh, we gotta go one more. There we go, bring that down. It can really kind of makes a difference going from here to here. And the difference that just adding a little bit more, asking yourself, what don't I like about this? And going back to that whole who, what, where. I didn't have a where before. Now I do. And it adds so much more to the story, to the image. And here's one more. This was the starting image here. Look how cranky and crabby he looks. That tells the story right there. The who is this crabby bird, and then I got to figure out why he's crabby. So I thought, well, maybe he's reading a newspaper and he's got a nosy neighbor in the background or something like that. So I started getting the pieces. I had my son hold the newspaper and, put it in the bird's hand there. And then I thought, well, I don't like that background. Where would that bird live? So I went out and I photographed a piece of the tree from my yard. And I started putting it together. And slowly but surely it started to come together. This is where I thought it was done. And then I started asking myself, well, what don't I like? And I was listening to print competitions, figuring out what they didn't like. And it ended up being the wings. The fingers weren't quite right. So I looked at other wings to try and figure out how I can do so. So I grabbed them from up here and then kind of redrew them a little bit and put them there. So that is, kind of some of the storyboarding thing part there. So now this one here is another one, the cat. And, the way that he's looking right there. And I've always wanted to do something like this. I was a huge Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan when I was a kid. Loved that. It was so cool. So I wanted to do a warrior. So just to do rough. You can't tell me you can't draw that good. It's pretty basic, pretty simple, but it gives you an idea. And it starts to show you where you need to put things along the composition grids and, where it needs to be improved and so forth. So then I just started blocking it together. Then slowly, it starts to come together. Now this one here, when you're doing this stuff, you can look at this, and it's very easy to look at something like this. I do it all the time when I'm looking at other people's work and say, no way I can do that. But if you change that and start putting the word yet behind that sentence,
That's a great
eventually
philosophy.
it kind of changes. So this was the first time I said I was done on this image. And somebody said, the head looks like it's floating. It doesn't look like it belongs in the body. And as soon as somebody says that, that's all you see, that the floating head, right? And then so I worked on it a little bit more. I got it a little bit better. Same person said it still looks like it's floating. So I did it again. Same person said it looks like it's floating. So I did it again, and I added some chest hairs, and then I did a little bit more, just added a little bit more highlights, and then all of a sudden he's connected. He's no longer floating. But if you allow yourself to just, don't put a period and don't say this is it. Say, well, this is it for now. Or I might not be able to do it yet, but eventually you can turn that yet into look what I did. This was probably one of the most, images I was most proud of because I learned so much doing it and, pushing myself into doing, this is not what I sell my clients, but this is what I do to help me learn how to do what I do for my clients much faster and much more efficient. This is fun. It's so much easier to learn when you're doing something that you find fun. So that's why I do this kind of thing. All right. So let's go into Photoshop and have a little bit of fun.
Oh, yay. I'm excited for this. How long have you been working or expanding on your skills here?
Let's see. I opened my studio here in about like 12 years ago, somewhere in there. But before that, I was working doing like graphic design and building wedding albums and things like that for other people. So I've been I graduate. It's been about 20 years, I know. I guess I studied when Photoshop had Photoshop 5, so been doing it for a little while. This here is one of my most recent images. This was a starting point. This is what the bird was, and then I changed it into this. Really did not take me very long because it's actually a pretty simple process. I'm going to show you exactly what I did, but let's skip all that. Let's skip the beginning parts and go to something a little bit more fun, and then I'll show you what we're going to start with. Just a brush, and I'm going to make a new layer here. This is going to be, we're going to give them a necklace. Now you could go and try and find like a stock image and put the necklace in there, but the lighting isn't going to be right. And to try and find something that you actually like and that is the right shape and all that kind of stuff, it's going to be hard. So why not just draw it? Most of the time people think, well, I can't draw. You know, you hear people say all the time, but neither can I. If I'm honest about it, my drawing skills are pretty mediocre, but in Photoshop, I can do it. And you can too.
The power of undo, huh?
So let's go to legacy brushes here. There's one that you get in Photoshop. Brushes is something that I see some people utilize near as much as what they can. All right, so we're going to take this charcoal 41 pixel brush here. Now, I'm going to simply draw a line. I'm going to switch my thing to normal 100%. I'm just going to draw a line. Don't like that. Now, when you're using brushes, you notice in here on this bird, it's got some texture and it looked kind of like I painted it all, right? I did not. I cheated. I'm going to show you how I cheated. I went into these brush settings here, and let's go. The first one up here is the spacing. I think I'm going to leave it at 1%. Let's go into this shape dynamics, and now watch this white down here. I'm going to start pulling this up, this angle jitter, and there's no magical number. Just kind of look and see what now I've got a texture. So if I come in here now and I make another line, that looks a little bit more like what an actual paintbrush would look like, right? We can go back in maybe just a tad bit more, and then we can come up to here, the spacing one. We don't want to adjust it too much, maybe just like 2%. All right, now let's come back and make another one. I like that. I like that a lot better than this. You've got some texture going on here, and it looks like you actually can use a paintbrush. So now I'm going to go ahead and delete those lines. Oops, I hit a wrong button there instead of delete. There you go. So now when I go in, I'm going to go ahead, since I made changes to this, I want to save this brush, because if I select something else, it is going to actually delete that and revert back. And I don't want to have to make those changes every single time. So we just come in here and we say new brush preset. I'm going to call this brush a Krish brush. All right, so that's what it's going to be labeled as. You have a brush named after you now.
I feel famous.
All right, so now I want to do one other thing. I want to come in here, and right here, this shape dynamics. Color dynamics. I can't read. Color dynamics. I'm going to click that. Up here where it says foreground and background. This brush now, since I have like about 30%, meaning that I use the foreground and background, about like this much. And then it just changes the hue and the saturation just a tiny bit. That purity, I can leave that at 0 for this one. I have 2 colors selected here. So now when I use this brush, look, it has both colors in there. Look at the feathers. You notice that they're not the same solid color. They have multiple colors in there. That's how you do that, by going like that. So now I want to go ahead and change and do right click here and new brush preset. We're going to call this one Chris Color. Okay, so there we go. So there, we've got 2 brushes that we made just by altering it just a little bit. I have one brush that will make just a solid line, and another brush that will make a colorful thing. Now the reason behind this is very, very simple. So now let's go ahead and start drawing. I'm going to go to this darker color. And I kind of selected the color bases off his eyes here. And I got normal selected up here, 100%. And we're just going to kind of draw in a necklace line. It gets a little heavy right about there, so we'll go like that. Okay, so this is going to be our necklace line. Kind of come down.
Are you using a Wacom tablet?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
You can do this with the mouse too. It doesn't matter. I'm not one that said you have to have a tablet in order to draw. You can totally do it with a mouse. I use both. I have the mouse and my pen here, but I am using the tablet for it right now. Now this looks pretty rough, but there's this magic tool called an eraser, and you just erase what you don't want. You just kind of go right there, and if you erase too much, you just go back to the brush and just, redraw it a little bit. We're just going to kind of, and just kind of shape it, and you just keep going, and keep shaping it the way that you want it to be. And I can go back to the brush. I hit B, but I can go back to that brush and kind of be like, all right, right in here, it needs to be a little bit thicker. Go back to my eraser, kind of erase that part. And I just had the regular brush selected, which is fine for this aspect. All right, so I have that. Now this is going to be the rope. We'll label that rope. Now let's do one more new layer here. And this one, I definitely want to have the multicolored brush selected. So again, the only thing that's different between this brush that I was using and this new one is it has the color dynamics box checked. So I'm going to come in here and we'll just kind of draw a penguin. And then I'm going to zoom in so you can really see what I'm doing here. But you see that it has a color. So this here looks flat. This one actually has some texture going on in it. So that's what we want. Kind of put this down in there. And I'm just going to draw kind of like a shape. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. But then you just fill it in. Yeah, you can kind of be right there, like that. Kind of put it down. However you want to do it. There's no right or wrong. It's just a random shape that we're drawing here for some kind of hunk of crystal or something that is dangling off of them. It's just kind of. And if you don't like something, you go to the eraser and you erase it. I mean, if it's not the shape that you want, you just go in there and you keep tweaking it until it is. Just like that. Yeah. So there's that aspect. And we're going to label this, label this one as crystal. Or rock. Rock has less letters, easier to type. And then we need one more piece on this. Another new layer, we're going to label this hook. Just a little, right there. Now this is going to be the piece. Let's go ahead and change it to that darker color. It's going to be the piece that kind of comes up and over here. And this is why I love this brush. You can actually see it. If I would have done that as a solid color, you wouldn't have been able to, tell the difference between this that I just drew and that rope there. So I'm just going to kind of put this in here, like that. It kind of will go down like this, and then maybe like a little claw thing here, and this way, like that. And then we'll kind of put like a little line there too. That works. All right. That's very basic, but we got a basic shape here now. What's the philosophy between when you're doing a portrait? If you're taking somebody's pictures and you're doing a headshot, what do you control using your lighting and the reflectors and stuff like that? Shadows and highlights. We're photographers. We know shadows and highlights. This does not look 3D because there's no shadows and highlights yet. very, very easy to go ahead and add those in. We just go in here and we go back to the regular brush. And I'm going to click right here where it's a little, looks like a little mini checkerboard type thing. I'm going to lock the layer. So then I can start shading it. Let's go to multiply and put 20% here. And I still have a color selected. And I'm going to start shading. So the lighting coming from this direction up here. Look at his beak. So he needs a shadow back in there. And then let's shade underneath the rope. And since I have it locked, I don't have to be careful. I can just brush the edge, and it is only going on to what's on this layer. It's only touching that rope because it's locked in there. So I can just kind of, it's round, so you want to have the highlights be in the middle there. The underneath would be a little bit more shaded. And kind of come into here, and we can kind of just kind of go like this. And same thing on this side. And wherever there's shadows, we need highlights, right? So then instead of multiply, I'm going to use the same brush and I'm going to switch up here to screen. Screen, 20%. And then I can touch on the highlights. Let's go to 10. You can just kind of start this. And then also, when I create a brush, I usually have 3 versions. I have the one that is plain, the one that has a color variant, and then I have a mixer brush. Because I can go ahead, and in order to create the mixer brush, all you do is you select the mixer brush. Go onto your brush palette. Let's go find our crisp brush. And I hold Control, Alt, and click on it. See how it turned orange? And then, though I never have to do that step again, I come up here and I say new brush preset, and this would be crisp mixer. Okay, so now I have 3 versions of the same brush, but I can go ahead in here. Let's just unclick this for a minute, and I can just kind of blend this in. If it's a little bit, if it's a little choppy or something like that, or if I want to alter this shape right here, I can just blend that in. So, that's how easy that is. All right, so then we can go back in and lock, go back to our brush here and just kind of highlight this just a little bit more. Put that little highlight right in the middle. From here, there will be a light highlight. Okay, so let's go to this hook. We'll do this hook part next. And same thing, I still have screen. I'm going to highlight, oops, I do not have a lock. Notice that? See what mistake I made? Right there, I drew outside of my line. I don't want to do that, so we have our undo palette right there, which is awesome. And we click our little thing there. And I can just go ahead and start adding some highlights. And I can switch to multiply. Up here, I changed it. I'm going to go 20%, and I can kind of add a little bit of a multiply down in here. Like right under here, there should be like a little piece there. Under this part, I want this to be a little bit darker. On this side, we kind of put like a little bit of a darker part here. And darker there. And let's go back to our screen. Up here, screen. And let's just brush against this part. 10%. I just hit the number 10. I can just kind of brush that part in right there. Okay. And then let's go into our rock. And same thing, let's lock our layer. Give a little lock on it. And let's start with our multiply. And we want this up top to be a little bit darker than the bottom part. And let's go ahead and draw in like a rough area right here and kind of put in some areas down in. Let's really get like a shadow underneath this part there. Kind of bring a little bit this way, a little bit more. Switch to screen. Let's go to the 20, and we're going to get this area on this side. 10% maybe. And let's say that there's like a little bit of a piece here that goes out like this. It kind of catches the light right there. Say this piece right here kind of catches the light. We're just kind of making this up as we go, but it's our world. We can make it do anything we want. That's the fun part. Go right in there, just like that. Let's go back to multiply. 20%. Now, these same steps, the same thing that I'm doing to create this, this part here, is exactly what I did to create the whole thing. I just traced over what was already there using screen and multiply, and it came out looking like it did here. I'll show you that in a little bit. But there we go. So now we have our necklace. It could be a little bit dark, but let's go to the rope layer. Just bring up our curves. Bring it down just a little bit. Maybe not quite that much. Right there. We can add a mask and 100% normal with black. And we can say, well, this piece of fur goes over that. This piece of fur goes over that. This one goes over that. Which are the ones? This piece here can go over that. This one and that one. Let's come over here. We're going to say this big chunk goes over this piece here. And all of a sudden, we've got pieces that kind of go under, and we can go back and we can shade it so that it would be correct there. We just add a little bit of shadow underneath that. Yeah, so starting to, so you just come back into here, we'll multiply, and we got it locked yet. So then we just put it, whoops, I have it at 100. We don't want that. When you make mistakes, you want 20% right there. You just kind of draw those pieces underneath. Get our shadows in there. So then we start to get, everything kind of taking the rock there. We can come in and kind of make that a little bit darker so it kind of blends in. And we can come up to our bird here. And same thing, we can just say screen. Let's take this color that we have on here. It just enhance his eyes just a little bit more so that they kind of, one tip, if screen is making it look a little bit too flat, come down one below it, color dodge, and it will pump the colors in there.
I love color dodge on eyes. It just does something unreal with it.
Yeah. So there we go. So right there, and even on this rock part, even on the rock, if we come in with that color dodge just a little bit, it's gonna make it look like it's really sparkling. That's where it kind of comes in there just a little bit. So now we've got a necklace onto our bird. And those exact same techniques there is exactly how I took this bird and made it into that bird. See, you just come in here, same thing. You just take this color, maybe pump up that saturation just a tad. And let's take this darker color, same thing, let's pump up that saturation just a tad. Now right here where the feathers are not being very defined, you just come in on multiply mode, switch to that darker color, and you trace. It's as a smart object, so I got to rasterize that in order to show you what I mean. Right there. So you see this line right there, you just go ahead and you trace. And now that shape of that brush that we created is what is creating this look right there. So if you like texture, which I do, I use a brush that has a lot of texture. If you like something that looks more like watercolor, you're going to use a brush that looks like watercolor with a softer edge to it. So this is exactly how I did that, by using the exact same technique that we use to draw something. Is that kind of cool?
That is crazy, crazy cool. If someone wants to learn more about brushes in Photoshop, do you have any suggestions for resources?
Play. It's the happy accident world right there. It's you just do something, you make changes, and if you don't like it, you don't save it. If you like it, you save it. That's going to be the exact, that's going to be how you figure out what all this stuff does. There are so many cool features in here. You can add texture, even more texture. You can, have a dual brush, which gets a little confusing. The only dual brushes I've made exactly by accident, and I can't do it again. But I saved that brush, so I don't have to do it again. So, that's where you create your own style, is right here, is by going in and, and And what I've done is like here, I've done brushes that made it like all these little strokes. So in here to get his fur, I did not go in there and make every single one of those. I made a brush that made multiple strokes, and it varies it up so that, like right in here with this type of thing, it varies it up so that it doesn't look like it's cloned. It's the way that the brushes create and stuff like that is so much fun. Like this one here, just look here. We did the exact same thing. I did the whole story outline creation, and then I wanted to challenge myself to draw something. This was for the artist category. And so I did the whole block, and that is my drawing skill. That is where my drawing skills are, is right there. But with Photoshop, you can start to kind of tweak it. You don't like it, you erase it. You draw over it, and you just keep piecing it in there. I used, here you can see the multiple colors in there because of that color brush. And then there's a brush right in here where you can see the multiple strokes. And on my Try Create channel, I use a lot of brushes, and I show you how to create the brushes that I'm using. But mainly I use, just like the fur brushes and stuff like that. And then also just like the one that looked kind of like a charcoal type thing. But here's where I was confused. I got stuck. So I looked at samples for what I wanted. I wanted more fire. I didn't know how to draw fire. So I went and I looked at fire. And then from there, I started being able to draw it and put it together. Write more notes when you get stuck. Start just doodling and writing it out, and it helps clarify things for you. Yeah. And keep going. And that's where that one ended. But to be able to go in there and make multiple strokes really does help. I didn't do it with this one. I did go in, I just kind of highlighted, each and every one, but it really didn't take very long. You're just tracing what is already there. I did it here on his cloak. This is the finished product right there. But his cloak right there. Let's see, if we take a look at a brush, I'll go ahead and find one. Now here's one that I labeled raccoon fur. Now, if I were to draw with this brush, it makes multiple strokes, and it uses both the foreground and the background color. So I'm just going to make it bright red so you can see what I'm doing here. So when I go ahead and I draw, it makes it so that it looks like it is getting the fur in there. And all that we do to do that is, I'm just going to go ahead and close this, and right in here to, the brush and stuff, you can take brushes that are already, the Photoshop gives you tons. You can alter those like I showed you at the beginning, or you can create your own. Very, very simple. Just click, draw a line. That's what I did. I have a brush that looks like that because I looked at raccoons and I went ahead and drew what I see that it looks like, just a couple of lines in there. So now when you start off with this brush, it's going to, when you come into here and you say edit, define brush preset, it is going to put it more like this. So when you're drawing, it looks like that. It looks horrible. It does not look like you want it to look like. And it kind of all weird there because there's other things. So you start spacing it apart. And you can go, even back into here with the color, the angles. If you wanted to really make him look like he's got some wild hair, you could certainly come here with the angle jitter, the side jitter. If you want some long hairs and some short hairs, you can mess around with that. And then now when you start to actually draw with it, much smaller so that it doesn't freak out. Well, your hair is going to go every which way because that's what I told the brush to do. So you just keep making changes until the brush is working the way you want it to work. And then you save it. And you have your brush for that. Grass and all that kind of stuff. Rain. Totally did that for the rain. Just made a brush to make, so I can put it where I want it to go. Stuff like that is so simple. It's easy. It really is not as hard as what maybe, because you look at it and it looks so confusing, but you're looking at the final piece. You're not looking at breaking it down to looking at just a small part, it becomes so much easier to understand and not get overwhelmed by and stuff like that. If you have any questions, they're being really, really quiet.
Yeah, I think everybody's just fascinated by what you're doing in that process.
It's
It's
coming
really,
in.
really cool. We've got just a couple more minutes before I've got some prizes to give away.
Okay. Let's add a glow to this really quick. That's the cool part. Let's bring this up to the top. And I'm just gonna start big, that nice soft brush. And we're just gonna come in here. Whoops, way too bright. 20%. Gonna come in, make it smaller. And then let's just change our blending mode to hard light. And now let's go screen. Right in there. And maybe drop that. Right there. Now let's just put a new little layer over top. This is just, everything here is all absolute. We're just working on a solid layer right there. I hit Control Shift Alt E and it creates a new blank layer over top. And then we just do the exact same thing. We go back to our little crisp brush here that has that texture edge. And we can start, let's just use the color dodge. And see, this is how you make it look like it's glowing. And it's just kind of hinting little tips of these feathers in here. Kind of add that in there. And that's so neat. I mean, it's just fun. You say you want this to glow, and poof, you're making it glow. You can make anything that you have in your mind just become a reality.
That
But
is
this
so
whole
cool.
yeah, so that how he's glowing. So from before, he's got Nicholas that's glowing. And that's exactly what I did. For the whole, what I showed you is how you take, look at his forehead here, and you've got your magic piece here, uh, and you turn it into that. You do screen and multiply and a little bit of color dodge in there to kind of pump the things, and you turn them from looking like this to looking like that. It's fun. I mean, look at the birds, and that's the fun part. Just taking anything and making it into any kind of reality that you want.
Wow, I think everybody's gonna walk away with a crisp brush after this one. Like, we need this. We need this.
It took me, but it didn't take very long to make it. All I did was went into what legacy and used the one that was already there and just altered it just a tiny bit to make it mine. That's where it makes it my techniques right there. So alter it and make it yours. Do something that you like, and make your own little editing style.
This is
Fun.
so cool. I'm gonna give away some prizes real quick, and then we're gonna come back and talk about an upcoming workshop that you have, which I'm super excited about.
Okay.
But let's get some prizes because we like those. So coming up here, and we've got again, thanks to American Color Imaging, they've given us stuff to give away. So we've got a $50 lab credit. So let's see who's going to walk away with that. Got the wheels spinning. You probably can't hear the sound effects from that one, but I can. It sounds great. And that one is Misty. So congratulations, Misty. We're going to come back, and our next prize, we've got a $75 lab credit. So $75 lab credit. We'll see who wins that one. And it's Alan. Congratulations on that one. We've got our grand prize, a $100 lab credit. So we'll see who's winning that one. And it's Leah. So congratulations. ACI will be reaching out to you to get that added to your account. So that's the prizes that we've got for today. So I'm gonna switch the screen back around, and we'll put it up here. Here we go. I gotta switch mode so we can actually see each other. There we go. Okay, now we're back in action. So you've got some upcoming workshops. Will you tell us about those?
Well, I'm doing a workshop for American Color Imaging. No,
American, almost.
good God, I can't think. ASP. It starts with an
There
A,
we go.
and I got
American Society
confused.
of Photographers.
Yes, that. It is. Good grief. It's September 25th. It's kind of an all-day thing, so what we did today is just a small part of what you can do when you really put those brushes to work. A lot of what I do is rinse, repeat, multiply and screen and stuff like that. But you can go so far with it. You really can. You can create brushes to do pretty much anything you want. And I'm going to show some compositing techniques and really show you how to create your own editing style. I mean, I don't want to teach you how to edit like me. I want to teach you how to edit like you and create your own worlds and what you want to do from Photoshop. And so that's the fun part is that yeah, so it's gonna, that we all have our own different perspective when it comes to art and how things should look, and that's the fun. It's fun to try to develop your own style. And that's what I'm gonna try and teach you how to do. And so that's on September 25th, and I believe it starts at 9 o'clock Central Time. So.
And that one, I'm going to shoot you guys an email, a follow-up email that has the link to more information so you can learn about that workshop, very affordably priced. And is it a merited workshop at all? Or is it just the merited length?
I don't think they're allowed to give them.
Oh yeah, it's virtual now. Virtual now. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you can learn all the good information. Yep. That's on there. And then you also have a Facebook group too. Is that correct?
Yes. It's called Try Create. It's me plus two other wonderful photographers. We have Tony Harriman and Jim Pierce. Tony is all heart. I don't know if you ever met.
She's been a guest on
She
here
edits
before
with
too. She is amazing.
tons of heart. And Jim is all brains. He is a very technical guy. So and then you got me. I think I get to be Toto the dog. Then if they're part and I don't know how that works. But anyway, so the three of us kind of run a Facebook group. It's free to join the group. But we have a Patreon channel as well. But you can join the Facebook group and get information on the Patreon channel, which starts at $5 a month. So it's very, very reasonable price, and you get to watch complete edits from the three of us. So you get three totally different styles. And then like the Facebook group, Jim puts cool little tidbits. He knows things that I don't know anymore. So it's kind of cool. Just like a source of information type thing. We do get quiet in there sometimes, but ask questions. We're always more than willing to help and stuff. So
cool.
Fun.
And I'm going to shoot you guys a link to both the group and the Patreon as well. So be sure to check your emails. And I know there was a ton of information that we covered today. And so there is a replay of this, so you can go back and watch it. And we'll also have Dana's contact information on there too. So if you want to reach out to her directly, you've got her information. Thank you. So, it looks like Kimberly just put it. She's always on top of it. Kimberly put the link in the chat as well. So you can check that out if you don't want to wait for the follow-up email that's going out. Any parting thoughts or bits of wisdom for us, Dana?
Just have fun with it. That's people get so worried about doing what's right and what's wrong. And Photoshop is an art program. There is no right and wrong. It's just however you want to do it, and just relax. That's the fun part is just being able to do whatever you want. You don't have to color within lines if you don't want to. You can do whatever. So that's where the learning is just having fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much, everybody, for joining us. And we will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye, everyone.